And welcome to the Pure Wrestling Show with your hosts, I'm the Don.
I'm Greg.
Kyle, I don't think you have a voice.
I do now.
You do now? Okay, excellent. The joys of being live.
That's
okay.
right.
Well, welcome to the show, everybody. We got a couple of great guests on today. We've got Jack Lord and Madness of Trip. We're going to be discussing, what makes a good wrestling promotion. This is mainly for a lot of wrestlers themselves out there, especially those guys starting out. What to look for when you're looking for promotions to work with, and we'll also be discussing today what makes a good character for you to play when you're out there, or it's called the gimmick. What's good? What do the fans look for? How do you build a good gimmick? So those are the kind of basics we're going to be discussing today, and of course, some little anecdotes and stories about the gentleman's time in wrestling, things that they've seen, done, some entertainment. But first, and we're going to open up pretty much every show like this, Kyle and Greg, they're both diehard wrestling fans, but they have one huge disagreement. Kyle is a big AEW fan and thinks it should be the only one out there, while Greg thinks it should be the WWE. So we've decided to organize this format, and they're going to tell you some of the reasons why you should be watching their chosen show. So which one do you guys want to start off today?
Go ahead, Kyle. Take the floor.
Greg, I'm a gentleman. How about you go first?
All right, I'll start it off. I don't hate AEW. I mean, if people want to, I'm not going to sit here and tell people, hey, don't watch it. I think if you're a professional wrestling fan, watch all the shows. They're all really good. But I started with the WWF, which is now WWE. So I was lucky to be during the golden era, but it wasn't the golden era then. I got to live through it with the Hulk Hogan's and the Macho Man's. So I've always had loyalty, you'd call it, to the WWE, because that's where it started for me. But I like the bigger company, the glitz, the glam, the big production that the WWE is able to do. I mean, if you look at their pay-per-views compared to what AEW does, it's just such a bigger spectacle. It's a nicer production, I think. As far as the wrestling goes, a lot of people like what AEW's product is as far as in-ring. But now you got Triple H and Shawn Michaels more or less running the show, and Stephanie. So I think the whole thing is really going to shift now. I think the WWE was sort of having some bad years there towards the end, but I really think this is going to energize the company. I think it's going to be better than it ever was, actually. So I think AEW, what little window they had, I think that closed a long time ago, and this is just slams it shut, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean AEW can't survive and still. I mean, they're on TNT, which is that's where WCW used to be. They're on a major network, So I mean, they're not slacking; they're doing well for themselves. I just don't think they're ever going to be what the WWE is. That's in my opinion, but that's all I got for that.
All right, so I mean, you bring up some pretty valid, fair points, and I am going to agree with you that it's not like I'm out here as some sort of anti-WWE guy all of a sudden. What it really kind of comes down to is we live in a wrestling culture right now where there's so much wrestling out there. I mean, between watching AEW, WWE, New Japan, the NWA, I mean, the list goes on and on. Impact, of course. I just prefer the AEW product at the moment compared to a lot of the other ones. And again, it's all going to come down to preference and I guess for some, maybe even the flavor of the month. When it comes to AEW, though, in particular, I really like the cross branding. So they're not just necessarily out there pushing their own product. You have direct involvement with Impact. Tony Khan, acquired Ring of Honor. Even New Japan Pro Wrestling is directly involved. So you have all this cross branding going on. I believe, what was it? Not last month or the month before that, you had the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which was a really interesting thing to bring in New Japan Pro Wrestling and kind of aligning it with AEW. So I like just where it stands right now. They're not just focused on themselves. WWE, on the other hand, at least for the time being, I can't really envision a scenario where they're going to branch out with other companies and really cross promote. And I could be wrong. And, I hope I am wrong one day. I'm just glad that you do have all these different companies, and a lot of talent has a lot more opportunity now to get a paycheck versus years ago when it really was just the WWE. And granted, you had WCW before that and a lot of other um, territorial promotions, I guess you could say. But uh, I just really like the direction of AEW, and maybe at some point WWE can kind of get on that same wagon there.
Yeah, I like cross promotion. That is cool. AEW does that. I don't think you'd ever see that with the WWE either. I mean, they made it look like they did it back in the day with like ECW, but like they like already like were getting ready to buy the company and stuff, so it wasn't as crossover as it kind of looked. Same thing when they bought WCW. They made it look that way, but they own the company at that point. So I agree with you there. I don't think we're ever going to see that. But again, like WWE, I don't think really has to do that. Like that brings in a lot of people when companies do that. Where the WWE, I think, like I said, they can stand on their own doing a pay-per-view by themselves because it's the WWE. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely understand it. The WWE will probably always kind of be the flagship promotion, I guess, that we know it to be. Things can change over time, and as I've actually discussed with other people before, I personally don't believe that the WWE is a be all end all, right? So if you're breaking it into this business and you're saying to yourself, maybe some years go by and you never quite made it there, but maybe you did work for a bunch of other bigger local promotions. I mean, it's a success in and of itself. Not everybody's going to be able to make it to that dance, whether it's the WWE or AEW. But going back to, AEW, obviously, I just feel like there's a lot more unscripted, more raw potential, no pun intended,
Yeah,
with AEW. I feel like, especially with the promos and just the energy, I just feel like it has a different vibe than the WWE. And again, I have nothing against the WWE. Grew up with them. They, really helped me as a young Kyle get through a lot of hard times in life. But just where it stands right now, I prefer that AEW product.
well, I don't think we would want them to be the same either, because what fun would that be if both shows are like trying to mirror each other? So it's good that AEW does a different thing. And like I said, I don't hate it. I record it. I have Dynamite and Rampage on my DVR. I watch them sometimes live if I'm around, but like I follow it, like I said. But for Don's discussion here, I'm the WWE guy, so I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
For the sake of devil's advocate, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that all you guys got for this week? Or this show?
Yeah, and agree with Kyle too. I don't think you have to get to the WWE to say I had a successful professional wrestling career. Maybe a long time ago, but in these days, like I see guys all over the internet and stuff making money all over the world, wrestling in Japan, never set foot in the WWE. So, I mean, you can do things in wrestling these days without ever, getting there. So that's great, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I agree with
a lot of the statements you guys made. Very good statements there. So yeah, there's so many great smaller promotions out there and up and coming promotions, and as long as you're out there, you're working a couple of days, each week, and you're getting paid for it, you got a chance of making a living doing something you love.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of what it comes down to at the end of the day is, for all the people that are doing this because they have a love for the business, it's just that's really all it comes down to at the end of the day. And obviously the goal is to make as much money as you could, get your brand out there, market yourself. But like I said, WWE is not necessarily a be all end all. We live in a really, really amazing wrestling world right now. I, growing up, never thought wrestling would be like this. I thought we would just, see WWE events on TV. TNA at the time, they played a role in the market, but now it's the best time to be a wrestling fan, and it's a great time to be involved in the business.
Yeah, a lot of great shows out there. Like I said, besides obviously AEW, WWE, you got a GSW or GCW. I'm sorry, GCW.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's still TNA floating around. And there's so many
Impact.
other smaller promotions out there. I mean, we could spend all day just listing some of them. And there's new ones popping up all the time, all over the place. So we got a lot of great things going on. Any final thoughts on this for
Absolutely.
either one of you two before we bring out our first guest?
I'm good.
No,
Oh.
I'm solid.
Well, then, just for our fans, before we bring out our first guest, just to keep track, everyone up to date, replays of this podcast and previous episodes will be found restreamed through Hamilton Radio. You'll find the link in the notes at the bottom of the video once it's all done being broadcast, as well as on our Facebook pages and our other social media outlets. You can tune in there to catch replays, and of course, you can come to the YouTube, Twitch, wherever you feel most comfortable doing it, and we'll be adding new outlets going on here in the future. So first, we're going to bring out the Madness of Trip. He's a local wrestler from New York. Been around for quite a while. And here he is, the Madness of Trip.
Man, quite a
How are
while.
you doing?
Oh, that's an understatement. 19 years is more than quite a while. That's a lifetime.
I was close. I said 15 backstage before you came on. I was close. So
Yeah,
you've
no,
been
we're
around in the New
we're
York
pretty
scene for a
ancient in
while.
this business.
Yeah. So you've been in the New
But,
York scene for quite a while, and you've wrestled many other places, obviously, besides New York, Northeast area.
Oh
Tell
yeah.
us a bit about some of the stuff you've done.
Most recent venture of note would have been prior to getting COVID last year. We had a nice one-on-one with at the heavyweight champion Moose. That was a very hitting match. That in the chest for a while. Besides that, we've been dabbling back and forth with tag team wrestling with our partner Pitbull Brian Yohe Jr., who's in the same area as us, and a lot of singles action. And it really just depends what city, what state, what's the need, and what we can do.
Any particular promotion?
We actually just had a local show recently.
Go on.
What was that?
Go on.
We had a local show recently. We actually it was Brian and I against a tag team out of Rochester called Greed, who they're a younger tag team, graduates of Flower City Wrestling Academy. Really solid tag team. We enjoyed working with them. Would love to work them again.
Excellent. Kyle, Greg, you got anything?
Yeah, so and welcome back, Trip. I know we've had you on a previous version of the podcast before. We had the privilege of talking to you. But just to kind of even go back to some of the other things that we did talk about before, just for anybody new that might be listening, what made you decide to get involved in this business? What made you say to yourself, this is what I want to do?
Let's see, we were 3 years old, and the first match we can remember seeing was the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation, and we were just captivated by Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So you can only imagine how much a kid growing up got to see that tag team and how it evolved into a rivalry over the years, culminating at the Iron Man match and then turning into the spectacle in front of the camera and behind the scenes that it was. So all of that really grabbed our attention as a fan. Personally speaking, our mother used to date Tito Santana, so we've been around this for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I remember you bringing that up previously about her dating Tito, and it was crazy when you first mentioned it to us. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. Greg, what about you? You got any questions for Trip?
Yeah, nice to meet you. I wasn't on that first podcast. I missed that. So this is my first time talking to you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm just doing some little wrestling stuff myself, but I've never done anything huge. Do you remember your first professional match, the first time ever getting in there, after your schooling and whatever, how you got trained, your actual first gig, your nerves, how it was that night, how it went?
the very first night we performed as Trip, and we have to be very specific on that statement. We wrestled against someone that we had known for a very, very long time, and we probably spent, after we set up the ring that day, we probably spent like in the ring bumping for everyone that wanted to do something, and someone wanted to go over something. You know, we taken whatever move just because we were so amped, so like just excited to have that. When that first match, like the music hit and we first came through that curtain, it went from sheer adrenaline and excitement to just that surreal moment that it's like, I'm really doing this. This is really happening. These people are going nuts. This is for me. Okay, don't fuck this up. Oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Right, cool.
We're independent. We can do what we want.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that's true. All right. You're a big Shawn Michaels guy. Like, do you have like a favorite match of his that you would say?
The Iron Man match, without a doubt, hands down.
Yeah, that's a great one. There's a great one he wrestled Macho Man, but it's like underground. You can only see it on YouTube. It was over in Europe at a house show, but with him and Macho Man, it was actually a really great match. Right before Savage ended up going off to WCW. That's one of my faves.
Yep, I remember that one. He was getting frustrated with all the commentary stuff, and they did that to just make him shut up. And then afterwards, he's like, you know what, screw this, Vince, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, at least he still had a nice career after that in the ring.
That's true. And a rap album.
Yes. That's all I got, Don.
Well, Trip, you and I earlier today, we talked briefly, earlier today before the show, and you were telling me from a gimmick perspective that you're looking to possibly be doing some changes to your gimmick and everything. Tell us about that thought process and, your thought process that got you to this point, and then what's the deciding factor in thinking you need to make a change again? Like, why do you feel you need to continue your character's growth?
So, oh God, I think we got to kind of take a storied trip down memory lane. No pun intended with the name. Now that I think about it, we got to kind of like go through how the process of the gimmick went in the first place. Like when I first got into wrestling and opted to start wrestling as Trip, and I had no clue what I was going to do with it. I had a nickname that was given to me, and I was completely clueless on how to present it. So I got my first pair of tights were Sabres colors, blue and yellow, and I came out there swinging a gallon of Hawaiian Punch, throwing Starburst to the crowd, and my girlfriend at the time was dressed up like a schoolgirl. So, I mean, how could you not like me? But it didn't do anything for me. I spent my first couple of years losing. So then changed the look, went all white with neon green, and tried to, be a headbanger because, I love my heavy metal. Just saw Metallica recently, so that was awesome. But yeah, the fans, they still didn't care. Tried to do something drastic, got a airbrush singlet, Rob Van Dam style, cut all my hair and tried to be a wrestler, Kurt Angle, collegiate style, and still no one gave a shit. It wasn't until after that I first started teaming with Brian, and we had started calling ourselves Spot Monkeys Inc. And instead of doing spot style wrestling, we came out to the ring, we looked like the Hardy Boys, and we acted like monkeys, and we were doing some of the dumbest shit of our entire career, and the fans loved us for it. So I was like, okay, why am I doing some of the dumbest things that I never thought I would do, and everyone loves it? We were very popular as a tag team, got a lot of bookings. I eventually hurt my knee during that run, and I had to take some time off. So then when I came back, during my off time, Brian had decided to elevate his little brother. So there were the Spot Monkeys Inc. presents the Emanon Boys, and eventually they dropped the Spot Monkeys part. So I sat at home, and I remember I was drinking some Jack on the Rocks, and I was watching a lot of just movies and TV. And the one theme that came about it was I saw a bunch of guys rocking top hats. And I was like, you know what? I could do that. I'd look good in a top hat. And then it just spiraled. I was like, you know what? Why just stop at the top hat? Why not become the Mad Hatter of pro wrestling? Why not, become the guy, that's the crazy guy in the ring? So it started as the Mad Hatter trip, and then the Mad Hatter professional wrestling trip, and then it eventually became the Madness of trip. I tried losing the comedic cartoonish style of the gimmick and became the Mad Wolf trip. That lasted for about a year. And after that, I went right back to the top hat. I was like, yeah, no, got to do this. And then took some time off. So I went from a profound loser to a monkey to a cartoon-ish crazy guy to a construct, to a wolf, back to a construct, and then decided to get out of the business in 2017. When I came back in 2019, I was like, well, how am I gonna do anything different? How can I go from a construct to something bigger? So I came back to wrestling as the Mad God. I decided to take a God complex and really go over the top with it. Talking about sacrifices, I'm a God walking amongst men. Who are you to tell us different? If you believe in Jesus, you believe in us. I really went like all out for it, and it worked. It worked for a very long time, but eventually I got just bored with it. So I went back more to the madness aspect of the gimmick. So now that I've been really, really long-winded, it probably bored you guys to death.
No, keep it going. I'm interested.
Now it's where do I go from here? Where does the madness of Trip go? How is there an evolution when you've already been a cartoon character, you've tried to be real, you've been a construct, and you've in your own world been a god? How does one evolve a gimmick? And that's kind of where I'm at this point. And I think I have a new concept and a new idea and a new direction, and some of them might be subtle changes, but the subtle changes end up having big waves attached to them. Like they're going to be something that you wouldn't expect based on how the gimmick has gone, because I've always been Trip, whether I've been the Spot Monkey, the Thrill Seeker, the Madness of, the Mad God, the Mad Wolf, whatever it is, it's always been Trip. So how does one really evolve that while still staying true to themselves? You know what I mean?
That perfect sense. It's definitely an evolution. I mean, it's easy how you can see how you've taken it over time and have kept making changes to it to find something that you feel comfortable portraying. But yeah, like I said, where do you go once you've been a god? Where do you go from there?
Well, I think the new direction is, going not necessarily more real, but giving them a glimpse of the person behind the curtain. I did an interview during quarantine, during COVID and everything, where I completely caught the guy off guard when I said the person behind the madness of Trip is worse. Like the madness of Trip, everyone has talked about how a gimmick is just, an aspect of the person's personality dialed up to 11. And in the case of Trip is actually the watered down version of the man behind it. And I think that the next evolution is to kind of give a interpretation of what the Attitude Era of wrestling tried to do with that whole shock value realism. Because if I started being more of myself and less of what I think people want, I think I'll get that same level of shock value.
I kind of can see
Makes
that.
sense.
I don't think there's a lot of people doing something like that at the moment. At least not from what I've seen. I mean, it seems like they're trying to be shocking, but they're not personal about it. They're like intentionally, clearly just stepping up and acting the part instead of just being the part.
True.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange concept that I've been mulling around probably for the better portion of a year. And I think I know the idea that I want to go. And I think I'm just going to ride the wave that I'm on right now through December. and start 2023 fresh.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. New year, new you.
Well, not just that. I mean, maybe I'll even give Trip a last name for the first time in my entire career.
There you go.
Whoa.
Tripped over. I couldn't come up with tripped over a stick. I don't know. But I do see we have a couple people. I don't know if you saw the little message I popped up on the screen. You know, you guys may recognize this name. You see him?
Draven Marsh. I get hit in the head a lot, man. So I don't recognize it.
Everyone's favorite little ref.
Oh, huh. That Marsh.
There you go. Good guy, good guy. Welcome. Thanks for watching. But so, like, any more insight you have in terms of like any advice you would give for a guy just starting out, like for instance, Greg and Kyle. You know, I mean, obviously they're plugged into a whole plethora of knowledge out there through me and through their own connections. You know, guys like Jack Lord, and who's going to be on here in a few minutes, and others. You know, they've got a lot of advice and help on creating their character and gimmick. What advice would you have for somebody just starting out? You know, going, great. What do I do? You know, like what should be like how should somebody start towards their first gimmick?
I think so. My answer would probably be in two parts. The first part is a lot more subjective. Look at the promotion that you do work for, the promotions you're intending to work for, and see what they don't have. You know, find exactly what's missing there, or what in your opinion is missing there, and if it's in your wheelhouse to present, how you can present it. So, I mean, I think that's the first one, looking at it as a business sense. If trying to look at it as the actual development of a gimmick, start looking for inspiration outside of the wrestling world. Like, start looking at Hollywood. Start looking at, you know, the different presentations of whatever mainstream media is presenting right now that has people talking, and how you can adapt part of what mainstream media is talking about frequently and make it your own to make you part of that subject matter. You know, those would probably be the two best pieces of advice, one business and one for actual growth.
Yeah, they both make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, they do.
I can give some examples.
Yeah, no, I think the thing about that too is whenever you can kind of put your finger on the pulse of something, you obviously have your finger on the pulse of it. You could kind of feel what people are engaged in, what they're talking about. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to infringe on somebody completely, but every gimmick, every character, since the beginning of time, even outside of the wrestling world, drew some sort of inspiration from what was going on around them. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Well, I mean, a really good example. The Madness of Trip was heavily inspired by almost every Johnny Depp character you've ever seen, thrown in a blender, and all I did was wrap it up in a Marilyn Manson package.
Yeah, I've seen some of your shirts in your official store. You got some really good stuff on there. I like your
Thank you.
Your designs and stuff. Awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
You've had some great looking merch over the years. In fact, shoot us a link. I'll make sure we put it in our notes. If people want to check out what you got, we can do that.
Happily. I am a shameless self-promoter. I will always sell.
You got to be in this business, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Speaking of self-promotion, as you see Kyle and Greg up there, you know, they're both wearing Pure Wrestling shirts. Now, they're not quite available for the public yet, but they will be soon. We're going to be starting our own store. We're going to have those designs along with a few others that we've been working on. Now, Trip, if you don't mind hanging around, I'm going to throw you back to the back room, bring out Mr. Jack Lord here for a few, and then near the end, bring you out as well, and we can have a little roundtable discussion with everybody. Okay?
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
So we'll see you in a little bit there, Trip. And everyone, I'd like you to welcome Mr. Jack Lord to the show. Hello, Jack. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I have cigars and whiskey, so I'm ready to go.
Can't ask for anything better, can you? So, well, Jack, I'm sure not like people down south they're looking at you going, oh man, we know this man. You know, you've been a mainstay down here in the South for professional wrestling for, I don't know, probably almost as long as I've been alive, from what I understand. It's been a while. But if you wouldn't mind, just for those who aren't familiar with you, if you could give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, this is, I just, the start of summer, I passed my 47th year in this glorious business. Uh, I started in 1975. I was a ring boy, 16 years old. I hung around, doing stuff like that for a few years. Joined the army, was going to make a career out of that, and even in the army, I was exposed to professional wrestling everywhere I turned around. So I would, find people to train me, and because I had still had that dream, although I intended to make the military my career, I love wrestling, and I just could not get enough of it. So I blew a knee out. They retired me. I came home in 1985. 2 weeks after I came home to my home in Alabama, I started training. A few weeks after that, I started wrestling, and I had 24 years actively in the ring. I retired 13 years ago, but I never left the business behind. I've booked shows, ran shows, trained people. Now I'm on the Cheap Pro Wrestling Inside and Out podcast with the sons of Ron West, who was one of the big time referees and guys in the office in Georgia Championship Wrestling and every territory office back in the day. So, wrestling is my life.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out for the fans at home, if you check out the Pro Wrestling and Inside and Out page, there are some older episodes that they have where Jack does a great job explaining his early career. So I don't feel there's a huge need to touch that, except I did learn something from watching it the other day. His first gimmick name was the Lord Warrior, which I think needs to be brought back for somebody somewhere out there. I love that name. I just got to say.
Well, you're welcome to it because it was a mask gimmick and I hated it. I didn't mind the gimmick. I hated wearing a mask, and I understand
I could.
the promoter who was also my trainer, initial trainer. He thought it would help me by wearing a mask, psychologically, and I did that for about a year and a half. Finally talked him into giving me an opportunity outside of it, and I've never looked back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I wonder if is that first match out there anywhere? Like, is your first couple of matches out there to be found?
Oh God, I hope not.
Oh, we're gonna have to get on that one. Anyone out there, we may have to offer a bounty if somebody can find some of those early matches of Jack's. That would just be great to see. And I mean, it's a piece of wrestling history on top of that. I mean, to see matches from that time frame before television and the internet, hell, before the internet ever existed, and when it wasn't super heavy on television like it is now. I mean, it would just be great to see the different styles of wrestling from back then. Well, now, Jack, one thing we brought you on to discuss today, where how Tripp was discussing, a personal development for a wrestler, a character. Another important thing, at least that I feel, and I'm sure most of you will agree, when you're a new wrestler starting out, I mean, obviously you want to get as much experience in the ring as possible. But we all know there are some shows that probably just aren't worth your time, either from a safety standpoint or you're just not going to learn anything there. What are some of the things new talent should look for when deciding to say, yeah, I'm going to go work for this show?
Really, don't worry about money. Worry about two things. Can is are the rings safe? That's a big thing, guys. I've been around shows. You can get hurt in some of those rings, and you could end a career right right out the gate. It's not worth that. So make sure you check out that aspect. But a lot of times you'll find these smaller shows that has some veteran guys on. Now they may not have ever went to the big time. That doesn't mean that they didn't learn something along the way. Go to those shows. Get with those guys. Ask to work with them. Ask them questions. Ask. But at the same time that you're asking, shut up and listen to what they have to say. Now, not everything works for everybody, so you have to take, uh, direction from a ton of people, but then you've got to call that out to what works for you. But again, the important aspect is to listen to what's being said. You don't, if you're just starting out, you don't know enough to be talking. You don't know enough to be giving advice. You don't know enough to be arguing with anybody. Just listen to what they have to say. If you don't like it, you don't have to take it, but shut up in the process. Shut up was a big key thing when I started. So, I was good at shutting up for a lot of years.
Uh,
You're good, Don. You just switched side. That's all.
Technical difficulties.
I told Don before the show that every time he messed up, I was taking a shot, but I'm not.
I toast to that.
Yeah, right. So just to kind of pick up where Don left off there, though, for a second, Jack, I actually had the privilege of a couple of years back finally getting to meet you in person, and it was a pleasure. In case I didn't say it, and even before I met you, one of the things I would do was I would pay very close attention to the different things that you would post on Facebook, just general advice, even just stories of the different things you've experienced throughout your wrestling career and even just life in general. One of the things I gathered immediately was just this sense of mentorship that you provide. And it seems like you do take a lot of pride and just want to see talent go as far as they possibly could in this business. With that being said, what would be, in your view, the most important thing for maybe guys and girls that are just trying to break into the business now? Some sort of advice that they might not be getting elsewhere.
Uh, One of the things that I see that everybody needs to adhere to when you're starting out is slow down. Everybody watches everything on AEW, WWE. When you guys discuss those topics at the top of the show, but they're so um, gung ho for doing all of these big spots, all of these things that the top pros are doing, what they see in a fast way. Speed gets you hurt, especially when you're starting out. Learn how to do the moves. You can only learn how to do the moves if you're in there consistently training. And you can't train one day a week and learn this stuff. You got to get in there every time, any ring, anywhere. Even if you're not on a show, call a promoter, ask if you can help him just to get some ring time before the doors open. Take every opportunity, but slow down. Make sure that you know how to do those moves before you try them in an actual match. And especially learn your mat game. A lot of my mentors have said to me that Ronnie West, who was the biggest influence on my career, he said, you can dress it up all you want to, but sooner or later, wrestling comes back to what you do on the mat. So learning those skills of how to actually work in the match, in the ring, without doing all those big moves, that's where the basis is. Learn those basics, and then learn all the high flying stuff later on. But the basics, that's what the big leagues look for. Do you know what to do in a match from the ground up? Anybody can jump over the top rope, well, except for me. But keep all that stuff to a minimum. Make everything you do mean something. It's all about storytelling. People will forget the match. They will forget the spots you do, but they will never forget it if you tell them a good story.
That's
that's
good stuff.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, storytelling is key. I mean, in any medium of entertainment, it's all about the story. I mean, how many shows and movies have you watched and you go, yeah, it was a good show, and then you ask the person to tell you about it, and they can't tell you about it. Was it really that good of a show? I mean, if they can't remember what happened on it, you know, I mean, no one's going to remember the specific moves in a fight in a movie or a TV show, or even the specific moves in a wrestling ring. It's something legendary like Snuka going off the steel cage for that first time, things like that. But for the most part, unless you're telling a story that gets people invested and they want to come back and know what's going to happen next, it's the whole cliffhanger thing. Don't give everything away, then they have no reason to come back. If you tell the whole story in one shot, there's nothing left to tell. And it's a long, drawn out story in multiple parts.
Even the Snuka move from the top of the cage at Madison Square Garden was significant, not just because it was a huge spot for that time, but because there was a huge story leading up to it. There was reasons why they did what they did in that match, and the whole match was great. People want to key in on that last spot that he did, which, by the way, he lost the match.
Yeah.
True.
So, but they don't remember that. They just, they want to key in on that one last spot. But if you go back and watch that whole match, it was fabulous. I mean, it really hit on all cylinders the whole time.
Excellent. So, I mean, basically, so when it comes to a show, look for a show where you're going to learn something is basically your biggest piece of advice.
Exactly. Like I say, don't worry about the money, but learn how to make money without depending on payoffs. Most promoters, let's just be honest, most shows don't draw that well. Even the good shows, I see guys all the time talking about their show is the best here and the best there, and they're drawing 300-400 people, which is a respectable crowd at the independent level, but you're not going to make the money that you think that you can make off a show like that because there's so many expenses involved on the promotion end. So
yes.
you've got to learn how to hustle. Brutal Bob Evans, if you don't follow him, I strongly encourage you, if you're in the business, go follow Bob, because he gives some tremendous advice about how to make money without depending on those payoffs. Payoffs are great, don't get me wrong. And once you get to where you think you legitimately earn bigger payoffs, that's fine. But until then, there's no reason you can't go and make money. I learned that early in my career. There was many times that I would go to shows and they didn't draw 40 people. And I was telling somebody about this the other night. I went to a show one time, 40 people in attendance. The promoter comes in at the end of the night and he gives me $10. Now that didn't hurt my feelings and it didn't make me mad because I knew that's all he could afford to pay. But what he didn't know was I had my own tights business even back then. I had sold wrestling tights to several guys on the show. I had sold pictures and wrestling masks to probably 39 of the 40 there. I had $900 in my pocket from that one night. So the $10 didn't hurt my feelings. Honestly, I didn't expect to get paid. And I wound up giving the $10 back to him, because I didn't need it. You got to hustle. There's money out there laying on the table, but you got to be willing to work for it and get it out there. And if you're young in the business, invest in yourself. Invest in your brand.
Excellent. So, and example for those watching, you can see the shirt Jack's wearing, the Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. I'm sure you guys sell some of those on occasion, correct?
We do. ProWrestlingTees.com, Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. We got this. We got a lovely picture of my ugly mug for sale.
Yeah,
And
I heard it works great
page.
for a dartboard. Just saying.
They do. It scares all the cats away. I don't have to worry about stray cats in the neighborhood. But
Jack, you cut out.
Can you hear me?
I don't know if you can hear me, but you cut out.
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
But So, and like I said, just to point out, as I said, the shirts Kyle and Greg are wearing, they're going to be available here in the near future. We're hoping maybe by the end of next month, hopefully. We're still working on trying to get that set out. Some graphical issues. But we still got about 15 minutes or so left. Jack, do you have anything more you want to touch on this particular subject in terms of what guys should look for? Anything like you feel you should add just as a little sidebar or something?
No, just try to find the right mentors out there. You might be able to meet them in person. You might be able to find them online. I'd be more than happy to talk to you, and try to give you a little advice. Uh, I never made the big time. Uh, I got interviewed and offered a job at WCW, and then they had me do the physical, and they saw how bad my knees were, and they said, "Nah, we ain't taking you," and I don't blame them. But I have lasted a long time in this industry, and I've learned a few things along the way. So I'd be happy to help you. Like I say, Brutal Bob Evans. Find somebody, whether you can meet them in person or meet them online. But there's people out there like me and him that want you to succeed. And that's the most important thing that makes me, Bob, and others like us different is that we really want you to make a go of this. We want you to, get to the big time. And maybe my last wrestling dream is for somebody to get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame that I helped, and they say, Jack Lord helped me along the way. So,
There you go.
That would be pretty big.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
So, okay, well, we've got about 10, 15 minutes or so left. I'm going to bring Trip back out and we can go over, anything we want to talk about, on topic, off topic. If anybody watching has a question, feel free to throw it out. Trip, I'm going to be bringing you back in. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, I'm back.
Oh, wow, we've zoomed in on you, it looks like.
Yeah, made it a little bit of adjustment.
Oh, okay. So now, Trip, like I said, you've talked to Jack online a few times. I don't know if you've ever had the chance
Yes,
to
sir.
meet in person. Well, hopefully one day we can arrange all that on one of our shows in the future. We never know what's going to happen out there. So, like, does anybody have anything they want to put out at this point? Something that they want to discuss, get off their chest? Let us know about a show or something that's coming up that you're aware of.
Well, real quick, I was listening, and I completely agree about want to help the next generation of wrestlers go further than what we could. I'm not one to say, hey, I've wrestled here, I've wrestled there. Now I've made decent money, I have some great people, but I'd rather be helping people get further than I ever could. That'd be so much better, especially if you got named after that whole speech. Woo, it'd be great.
Maybe even be sitting in the audience when it's happened if you're lucky enough.
If I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned shows coming up. I mean, Labor Day weekend, we're going from New York to Maine for Supernova Wrestling. There's a young man up there, Stevie, that put his hands on us, and we're gonna regret to teach him how valuable option is.
Yeah, Jack, I know you're big and well connected in the Southern Wrestling here. Any good shows that you know of coming up, and anything out there that you think fans need to know about?
Here in Alabama, we don't have just a ton of shows. We've got New South and a few others that run on a regular basis. New South is, I kind of look at them as my kids because just about everybody there I helped get in the business, go from backyard wrestlers to actually getting in the ring. So I'm real proud of all that they do. They're on YouTube. They're on these other places that stream their shows. So proud of them. I will be helping a buddy of mine, Carmine Despirito. He's out of Oklahoma. I'm going to help him with a show he's got coming up in Birmingham towards the end of next month, I believe the 24th. Big outdoor festival, bringing a lot of Lucha Libre stars up, Blue Demon, several others. And that's really the only one I'm directly associated with right now. I'm just kind of taking this year off. What next year brings, I don't know. I'm 63. The end is in sight, but it ain't here yet.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Kyle, Greg, I mean, do you have any questions for our guests? Like, we still got some time here, so.
No,
Go ahead, Kyle.
the only thing that I got is I know Trip, you had mentioned earlier about this evolution of a new gimmick essentially that you're looking to do, and then you obviously have that show coming up as well. Besides those two things, what is next for Trip?
Well, companies that we were a cornerstone for New York Championship Wrestling is relocating this weekend actually for the International Wrestling Hall of Fame. Moved from Central New York to Eastern New York, closer to state capital of Albany. So after this initial event, we intend to return to see what the is going to look like, to check out, the new demographic that they're going to be in front of. We're also building up, just going to building up the booking schedule. Really, more cities, more states. We've been on a tear through the Northeast as of late, so we're kind of looking for warmer weather. I mean, come on, we're from Buffalo, New York, so I mean, we're going into October, November, December. We want to go south where it's warmer. So
Me too.
I
Me
agree.
too. And then basically the same thing that for you, Jack, is I know obviously you've been retired out of the ring now, but you did say that you're now more involved than ever. What's next for Jack Lord?
Well, like I said, we've got that one show coming up in September. Mostly what I'm doing is just concentrating on us trying to build the podcast up. We're on every Tuesday, same time as you guys are here, but we're a little different because we really concentrate more on the old school wrestling. We talk about the new current stuff. We go over ratings and news that's out there at the top of the show, but then we segue into talking about the historical stuff. We have probably a good 1,000 hours on YouTube available with all kinds of stuff that we've done from Hacking Schmidt all the way forward. So we really, what we're trying to do is just preserve our history because our history is important. And I think a lot of the younger generation really should look up some of those things. There's a lot of books out there on some of these great wrestlers of the past, and get those books, learn your history, look what those folks went through to get us to where we are today. And I will say, I'm not one of those old school guys that hates the modern product. I don't. The only thing I have ever asked out of anything of today's product is just get me involved. Because even after all these years, I'm still a fan. I want to believe. I love Star Wars. I know it's not real. That's okay because they tell such a great story in everything they do.
Yeah.
I forget all that. While I'm watching it, I forget all that. And that should
Exactly.
be the aim of what we do in this industry. Every time a bell rings, we should make people forget just for a moment that it's a work because
Also,
they paid hard money. Give them the reality that they really seek and that escape. Get them involved.
Yeah, definitely. I think Al Snow had said it best, the suspension of disbelief. So I definitely understand.
It's supposed to be
Greg,
fun, ultimately.
yeah, really.
it is.
You got anything there, Greg?
Jack had mentioned outdoor shows. Question for Trip. You a fan of outdoor shows? I'm sure you've probably done a few over the day. You ever had to wrestle in like 90-degree heat outside or rain? Or you a fan of outdoor shows?
Yeah, I've done several outdoor shows. One in particular comes to mind. It was at the Dunkirk Fairgrounds, and it was an outdoor show. And at the time, we had a lot of layers, and we were like 99% all black. The mats around the ring were black. If I remember correctly, even the ring canvas was black. Every bump sucked 10 times more than normal. I was sweating bullets, but by the time I even got to the ring, I came from the curtain. I'm 5 feet from the ring, and I'm like, okay, I'm dying already. I'm completely blown up. And I was lucky that it was a 6-man tag, and I didn't have to worry about being in the ring too. First time I got thrown out of the ring, and I landed on those hot pads around the ring. I hate life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I used to hate outdoor shows as a wrestler. This one we've got coming up is actually at a festival, so it's an all-day event. They're expecting over 100,000 people to attend this. But what we're going to be doing is we do 2 matches, we take an hour break, come back and do 2 more matches. So, we start at noon, and the last match goes on at 8 p.m. that night. So there's going to be a lot of matches. I'm going to be there a long time, and it's going to be hot. But I'll be in the back, and I can bring a fan. I feel sorry for those guys in the ring, because I'm telling you guys, of all the places you want to be in a wrestling ring, outside in Alabama during the summer is not on the list.
That's brutal. Now, I do have a quick question here. We still got a few more minutes. Jackie, one of the things you guys talk about in your podcast, as you said, is the older stuff, the history, the wrestlers from the past. Touching on what we've talked about today, how do you feel about guys today going back and borrowing inspiration for their gimmicks from some of the legends and the people of the past?
To a degree, I don't mind that. As far as taking somebody's name, I've never liked that unless you have permission from that wrestler or their family. Here in the South, Jackie Fargo was one of the biggest names in our industry. Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, everywhere Jackie Fargo went, he was a major superstar in his time. And I can't tell you at how many hundreds of blank Fargos that I have met in my career. Even now, there's still people trying to ride off of the fame he had, and the majority of wrestling fans now of this generation, they don't remember who Jackie was. Those guys, the young ones, they're like they remember their grandpa or great grandpa with some of them talking about how great Jackie was. So they're just they're riding on those coattails. There's nothing wrong with emulating. There's nothing wrong with picking up moves or styles from them. I just have a problem with the names unless you got permission. Now, if you got permission, by golly, go for it.
That's some sound advice. Yeah, you see it all the time, guys. Either directly copying a gimmick, and they may have a different name, or vice versa. They borrow the name, but their gimmick is completely different. Or some just flat out rip off both. You see that all the time. But I think it's better to be an original than a copy. Even if you're a great copy, you're still always going to be thought of as a copy. I mean, that's how I feel on it.
You mentioned that makes me think of how many being Doink the Clown and on all these independent shows.
I was actually had that in my mind. I was going to say I knew of five here just in Alabama that were doing the Doink the Clown gimmick.
I've met 2. I've met 2 different ones.
4.
But then again, you hear a name like Bam Bam. There's been dozens of Bam Bams, but each one was unique. Like I personally remember Bam Bam Bigelow. I had the privilege of getting to meet with him and hang out with him a handful of times. He used to live not far from me up in Pennsylvania for a short while when I lived up there. phenomenal human being. But he made the Bam Bam gimmick his own, and I'm sure Jack, you could probably name 6 or 7 other Bam Bams out there.
Terry Bam Bam Gordy.
Yeah, well, that was the other main one I was thinking.
Yep.
But so it's like, but like I said, anybody new coming with that, unless they're doing something that just sets them apart, they're just going to be looked at as, oh, you're not the real Bam Bam,
Well, I know one guy in particular that uses the Bam Bam thing, and he has set himself apart from Bigelow or Gordy, and kind of made the name his own, which I don't have a problem with that. Now, if he would want to go with Bam Bam Gordy or Bam Bam Bigelow, that would be something else, but that's not what he does.
Okay, well, gentlemen, anybody want to have a final word here? It looks like we're pretty much just about out of time today.
Tuesday nights, tune in, Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. If you love old school, we're your home.
It's a great show. I watch it whenever I can remember to. Shoot me a message before the next show, Jack, so I don't forget. Kyle, Greg, anything?
No, I just want to thank Trip and Jack for coming on and spending some time with us.
Yeah, same, guys. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it greatly.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we can catch up with both of you guys later. And Jack, we've talked. We plan on having you on in the future. And Trip, I'm sure when you have something going on, maybe early next year as things go on, we'll find a way to bring you on again and catch up to base. And Jack, you've got so much knowledge. We're going to have you, and as on our last show, we had Cue Ball Carmichael on. We'll have him on again. Just to say goodbye, I'm the Don.
Greg. As always, I'm Kyle D.
Greg.
And everybody, you have a wonderful evening.
Take care.